This film covers a comparison between the Packard 6 and the Buick 40. Both cars are measured by the same standards, chiefly from data supplied by the Packard Proving Grounds. Every effort has been made to present the facts impartially, although it is clearly impossible to guarantee the information.
Almost every day, you hear someone say in an offhand manner, "Oh, all cars are pretty much alike today." Our answer to that is, on the surface, perhaps so. But when these cars are subjected to the searching examination of trained automotive engineers, marked differences are observed in material, in workmanship, in performance. Bearing this in mind, suppose we carefully compare the Packard 6 and the Buick 42, deservedly popular leaders in the lower medium price field. Both the Packard 6 and the Buick 40 are good cars. Let's follow these two cars into the Packard Proving Ground. The man who is going to spend his money has a right to know what they are. To the development of one make of motor car. Here, these two cars will be put through exactly the same tests in order to determine, as accurately as scientific instruments can guarantee, the fundamental differences between them.
Appearance, of course, is a matter of personal preference. It cannot be measured with calipers nor put under a microscope. However, we feel you will agree that the new Buick represents a radical restyling of the preceding models, whereas the Packard retains the popular and well-loved lines which give Packard cars their traditional prestige and refreshing identity. What's more, radical changes from year to year create progressive obsolescence and lead to costly style depreciation. The owner of a 1938 Buick, we feel, will not welcome the radical restyling of the 39 Buick, which puts his nearly new car into the style discard. Contrast with this Packard styling policy, a policy which, year after year, has protected the owner's investment, permitting him to utilize the long mechanical life of his car before unnecessary style changes force him to dispose of it. This year, Buick stresses the fact that its new front-end styling improves cooling. This is true. The new Buick 40 cools more effectively than its predecessor. However, proving ground tests show that the Packard 6 has an even higher cooling index. This is due to several reasons.
The Packard radiator core is over 32 square inches larger. The whole area is exposed to direct draft. And the exclusive fan blast cooling tunnels further increase the fan's capacity. In addition, Packard provides automatic radiator shutters, an exclusive quality feature among cars in the Packard 6 price class. Distinctive in appearance, they serve an important operating function too, since they assure a quicker warm-up and help maintain the temperature of the engine and engine compartment at maximum efficiency. In contrast, the Buick grille is merely ornamental. Another point while we're looking at the front. On a Packard 6, the bonnet sides raise with the bonnet itself. On the Buick, only the top is movable, the sides being stationary. The Packard type of construction, employing fixed center panel and rigid tie rods, prevents the noticeable vibration or flutter so evident in the Buick bonnet even on medium rough roads. The engineers have a word for it, they call it oil canning. Here is a revealing profile view of both cars. Of the two, doesn't the Packard appear the better poised, the more majestic? As we inspect the wheels of each car, a small but nevertheless important difference becomes apparent. While Buick probably affects a slight saving in cost by eliminating tire chain slots, Packard believes this feature is important to the convenience of the car owner.
This year, Packard again provides the convenience and safety. Yes. And cleanliness too, of wide running boards as compared to Buick's narrow ones.
As an optional choice, Buick provides so-called stream boards. We feel that the high step-up is likely to prove awkward, especially to the ladies. Besides, in bad weather, dirt adhering to the passenger's shoes is likely to be carried directly into the car. Now, let's move around and inspect the rear of the two cars. We believe most buyers will prefer the pleasingly proportioned lines of the Packard, with its divided rear window and its gracefully contoured trunk with concealed hinges. In fact, this picture may reveal what we mean by better symmetry without too detailed an explanation of the artistic principles involved. When we look inside the trunks, we make other discoveries. The Packard compartment is neatly divided into two sections. Buick, presumably for cost reasons, has omitted the serviceable shelf, which keeps the luggage from becoming scuffed by rubbing on the spare tire. And here's another point: in the Buick trunk compartment, the printed jute lining is merely cemented to the body panels, whereas Packard sprays a thick and attractive suede-like insulator directly onto the metal panels, where it will stay put.
Such differences, we feel, will be much appreciated after a year or so of ownership.
Now, while we are examining the rear sections of the two cars, let us discuss a change Buick has made at this point. Probably in an effort to reduce costs, Buick this year has cut its frame off at the rear axle, leaving a 35-inch body overhang. The short frame and extremely long overhang are likely to impose unusually heavy loads on the body. And these stresses are increased even further by the new mounting of the rear bumper and gasoline tank, which, like the trunk contents, will all be carried by the overhanging body instead of by the frame itself. What's more, Buick's greater overall length is likely to make parking more difficult, and will certainly not improve maneuverability in traffic. Buick's greater overall length of 5.5 inches does not, as one might suppose, result in more passenger space than Packard. For the Packard interior is actually 2.5 inches longer from dash pad to the front of the rear back seat cushion than the Buick. Here are other important evidences of greater Packard roominess. Entrance space, front compartment, with the front seat in the medium position, 1 5/8 inches more room in the Packard than in the Buick. The rear entrance advantage for Packard is a full 2 inches. Likewise, although Buick has increased the width of its body in 1939, the Buick front seat is only 1 inch wider than Packard's. The Packard rear seat still shows an advantage of 1/2 inch in width, 3.5 inches more elbow room and 2 3/4 inches more shoulder room. Now, let's compare the interior details of these two cars. Putting ourselves in the place of the owner who has had his car for several months, and is either pleased with the thoughtful attention given to his comfort, or annoyed at the manufacturer's oversight. As months of ownership roll past, we believe that buyers will prefer the Packard speedometer, which can be read at a glance, to Buick's novel but hard-to-read arrangement in 15-mile steps. The Packard rheostat, which permits controlling dashboard illumination to the driver's exact wishes. The larger and more accessible package compartment on the Packard. The larger pads on the Packard brake and clutch pedals and more comfortable positioning of the accelerator. Here is an important comparison. This year, both Buick and Packard provide the steering column type of gearshift. At first glance, there seems to be little difference. Upon careful examination, however, we believe you will agree that the Packard gearshift is superior to the Buick mechanism, both in styling and in quality. Yes, and much more convenient to operate, too. For shifting, the Packard is effortless and quiet, while the Buick gearshift is actually noisy, and likely, therefore, to prove irritating as the novelty of new car ownership wears off. What's more, in the Buick, the lever is placed beneath the steering column where the driver is likely to bump it with his knee as he applies the brake. On the Packard, there is ample clearance for unhampered operation. This year Buick has added another outside door lock. However, it is still possible for the driver to lock himself out of the car when his keys are inside. Something which is practically impossible with the remote type of front compartment door lock used on the Packard. In the rear compartment, both Packard and Buick provide ash receivers in each armrest. However, Buick ash receivers are located in such a way that 5 inches of useful armrest on each side are sacrificed. Packard armrests are full length. Buick's slightly lower cost may also be partly attributable to the new design of the rear quarter windows. Instead of pivoting as they do in Packard, they slide. Instead of creating an exhaust for smoke and stale air as in the Packard, the Buick window sends it straight back into the face of the passenger. Now, let's check off at least a few of the many points of difference in the Packard 6 and the Buick 40 engines.
Because of the inherent simplicity and smoothness of L-head design, Packard prefers it to the valve and head type. Isn't it a significant fact that out of 19 manufacturers, only 3 power their cars with valve-in head engines? Now for a few of Packard's many engine features. Packard uses the efficient expander-type oil control ring in the lower groove with iron oxide coating, which retains its oil-controlling ability for a longer period. Buick recommends this more expensive type ring for service replacement yet does not use it in production. To ensure utmost purity of the engine oil and promote long engine life, an oil bath air cleaner and two-stage oil filter are standard on Packard. These two important features cost $10 extra in the Buick. Another quality feature offered in the Packard and not provided in the Buick is the vacuum pump, which assures uniform windshield wiper speed under all conditions in hill climbing, during acceleration, and at high speeds. The Packard 6 is equipped with the highly efficient semi-centrifugal type of clutch, the same type used in General Motors' most expensive car, the Cadillac. The Buick 40, however, uses the same type as Chevrolet. Proving ground tests show that the Packard clutch operates with 10 pounds less pedal pressure than the Buick. In these days of stop-and-go driving, this greater ease of operation will be increasingly appreciated by all drivers, and especially by the ladies. The new Packard Uni-Mesh transmission for 1939 is an excellent example of building highest quality into a car so as to assure long life and trouble-free operation. It is finer than found in any other make of car costing less than $3,000. In the new Packard transmission, all forward speed gears are in constant mesh. This practically eliminates any possibility of gear tooth damage and makes for lighter, faster, clash-free shifting. Buick does not have the constant mesh design. Furthermore, to provide smoother operation and longer life, Packard uses 9 anti-friction bearings in the transmission, compared to only 3 in the Buick. Naturally, such quality differences cost Packard more money, but we believe it's money well spent. The Packard 6 has EconoDrive available at moderate extra cost. We regard this as an outstanding advantage, for Buick has none to offer. EconoDrive decreases engine revolutions 27.8%. That means a tremendous reduction in engine wear. It also means a worthwhile saving on gas and a major saving on oil, improved acceleration, better smoother engine operation, and higher top speed. The most outstanding advantage of the Packard chassis over the Buick lies in the soft, mellow ride which it provides. The gentlest ride on the road. Of course, there is only one way to make a real comparison, and that's to put both cars over a washboard road. Like this. Then and only then will you appreciate Packard's exclusive Safety Flex front suspension, Packard Safe, 4-point anchorage of the rear suspension, and Packard's latest contribution to motoring comfort, the 5th shock absorber. One of the basic reasons underlying Packard's superior ride lies in the exceptionally wide angle at which the torque arms of Safety Flex front suspension are joined to the supports. These diagrams illustrate the difference. Just as a narrow angle bracket shakes when struck with a hammer, the conventional or Buick type of front wheel supports tend to vibrate under impact. The Packard torque arm design, however, takes road impact without vibration, just as the wide angle bracket resists hammer blows. Buick, like Packard, employs a lateral stabilizer in its rear suspension. However, in the Buick, the stabilizer is the only part that holds the rear wheels in proper position, for Buick's coil springs can play no part in maintaining the alignment so essential to safety. In the Packard design, the semi-elliptic springs securely held at 4 points by heavy shackles hold the wheels in a positive position. Packard claims a distinct advantage in its rear spring design through the use of both live rubber and special metallic alloy spring inserts. As a result, Packard rear springs produce a ride that is not only flexible but controlled to compensate for conditions of speed and temperature as well as load. Buick, with soft flexible coil springs, has practically no control over flexibility other than that provided by the rear shock absorbers and a single rubber bearing. The opposed mounting of the Packard shock absorbers assists the springs in keeping the axle in normal position, thus reducing squatting and ducking when starting and stopping the car. Buick accomplishes the same result with their so-called torque-free springing, but with a harshness of ride characteristic of the torque tube design. Packard lays great emphasis on its exclusive 5th shock absorber, which effectively cushions and controls sidewise shocks much the same as the other 4 shock absorbers control up and down movement. Buick does not have this important comfort and safety feature. In the Packard frame itself, we again find examples of Packard superiority. Packard's tapered I-beam X member is more rigid than the Buick channel member. Packard's side members are the same thickness as Buick's, but they are deeper by almost an inch. The rear axles of these two cars present another interesting comparison. Due to Packard's four-sided method of mounting the rear axle pinion, if bearing wear should occur, only the bearing would need to be replaced in the Packard. In the Buick, both pinion and ring gear as well as the bearings would require replacement. Again, it is significant that Cadillac in their 1939 models duplicates the Packard 6 design. Still another convincing index of quality reflected in long mechanical life is the fact that Packard uses 48 ball and roller bearings to Buick's 31. And experienced buyers know that bearings are, to a car, what jewels are to a watch. Now let's follow these two cars into the Packard Speed Bowl and interpret the features which we have just reviewed in terms of performance. First, let's compare their acceleration. Here, Packard with its more economical engine accelerates from 5 to 40 miles per hour at substantially the same rate as the Buick. With Econo Drive, the Packard proves a bit faster. Packard concedes that Buick's top speed is slightly greater than its own 85.35 per hour to Packard's even 80. Either, we believe, is more than ample for most owners. However, those who want more speed will find that the Packard 6 equipped with Econo Drive will give them 84 miles per hour, and with nearly 1,000 less engine revolutions than the Buick traveling at the same speed, a tremendous saving in engine revolutions, and therefore, in wear. What about miles per gallon? Tests made at the proving ground and based on different constant speeds show a tremendous Packard superiority. The mean average of 20, 30, 40, 50 and 60 miles per hour shows 16 miles per gallon for the standard Packard 6, and only 14 miles for the Buick 40. With Econo Drive, the Packard 6 delivered a full 19 miles per gallon. It should be kept in mind, of course, that these results were reached under ideal non-stop driving conditions. As a comparison of economy, however, they accurately record Packard's superiority. Then, there's deceleration, a factor which every careful buyer must, of necessity, heed. In stopping both cars up to 50 miles per hour, little actual difference can be observed. However, beyond 50 miles an hour, Packard shows a marked advantage. At 60, for example, Packard stops in 163 feet as against 220 for the Buick. A difference in stopping ability of more than 3 car lengths. A tremendous safety advantage when making a high-speed stop on the road. And Packard not only stops more quickly than Buick, it stops more easily too. In fact, proving ground tests made of the braking effort required for ordinary stops show that an average of 24% less pedal effort was required on the Packard foot brake than on Buick's. Packard also shows a marked advantage in stopping the car by means of the handbrake, as the following figures will clearly indicate. Hand brake stopping ability. At 20 miles per hour, Packard 39.5 feet, Buick 45.0 feet. At 60 miles per hour, Packard 343.5 feet, Buick 478.0 feet. Mean average, Packard 191.5, Buick 260.5 feet. Effort to apply, Packard 40 pounds, Buick 60 pounds. And so, if we interpret performance in terms of an athletic decathlon wherein each event like pole vault, broad jump, low hurdles, is given a certain number of points, you would find that Packard outstrips its rival in the total, producing the best all-around performance in its price class. And now, as we leave the Packard proving ground, let's crystallize our findings by placing a conservative valuation on the differences we have just discussed. And so we find that the Packard 6, with its quality features, its quality construction, and its all-around performance represents at least $122.50 more value for the money than the Buick 40. And that's pricing these features at less money than we believe to be their actual worth. And to this tangible and impressive value superiority, the satisfaction of owning and driving a Packard, and we believe that since quality makes the difference, Packard will be the car you choose.